This episode is brought to you by Ardan Labs Education. Sign up today to learn advanced concepts in Go, Docker, Kubernetes, Terraform, and more. Visit ardanlabs.com/education for more information.
Welcome to the Ardan Labs podcast. Our special guest today is the one, yes, the only Colin Hodge. Colin, man, thank you for showing up today.
Happy to be here. Thanks so much, Bill.
Hey, man, give everybody the 2-minute spiel. I don't know what a good word is other than spiel. I feel like that's an old school New York word, spiel. When's the last time you heard that word, Colin? Give me the spiel. But I need the 2-minute spiel.
I can give you my 2-minute spiel. Don't worry. I have an engineering background. I studied computer science. I went to Cornell and then spent some time at Amazon, Microsoft, and all the big tech guys back in the day. But I pretty quickly realized that I wanted to strike out on my own. And so after a few years of toiling, I launched the viral hit Bang with Friends. It was a dating app / hookup app back in 2013. And so we just hit our 10-year anniversary. It blew up out of the gate. We had millions of users. I rebranded it, went through all sorts of lawsuits and stuff, all the while doing most of the coding myself. And then at some point, we were able to raise some money, able to sell the company 5 years in. And thankfully, about 5 years ago, I was able to buy it back after a short stint where another company owned it. So now we are running Down, as it's called, Down app, and we are a top 20 dating app in the US, maybe top 15 depending on the day. And we're very happy to hopefully be positively changing the culture and helping people find the relationships that they want.
Down. I haven't heard about this one. I didn't even, well, let's just say I was married in 2013, found myself divorced in 2018, started,
Oh,
I
no.
tried
Sorry
the
to hear
Match.
that.
In fact, I found my wife on Match.com. We could talk about that later. But so I would never have seen Bang with Friends, which is a really funny name, actually. How old? No, we're gonna get there. I can't ask you that question yet. We're gonna get there. This is a podcast about you, so we're gonna walk our way through that. But I'm guessing I need to hear how is Down different than all the dating apps that I've heard and seen on Netflix recently, and the
Sure.
Netflix rom-coms, because dating apps are showing up on rom-coms now, like every one I watch.
Yeah, dating apps are everywhere. They're definitely into the mainstream now. So Down's main claim to fame is that it's just way more straightforward and honest than other dating apps. So we want you to be able to truly express who you are. A lot of people think, oh, it's just a hookup app. Maybe they think even Tinder and some of the other ones are hookup apps, but ours gets right to the point. So starting with the profile that you build, we have an awesome highlight feature where you can just pick what is your best attribute that you want to stand out to other people. And we have all sorts of fun ones, everywhere from, let's say you're a sapiosexual, you're attracted to intellect, to the more scandalous side. When you're actually swiping on profiles, and this is the key difference, you indicate what your intention is with that person. So if you see somebody who has, boyfriend or girlfriend material, then you would swipe to get a date with them, swipe up to get a date. And if you see that they, maybe they're just somebody you'd consider for something casual hookup, you swipe down. And that way, when you match, you have clear intentions and it's a conversation starter and just a lot less wasted time and dishonesty with what people are looking for.
That's super interesting. Super interesting. God, I got so many questions, and I'm gonna ask a couple more, but then we're gonna jump in the time machine here. But yeah, no, way too many questions, because I had to deal with the dating apps, and I didn't want to deal with more than one. So
Mm-hmm.
I just thought Match was going to be the most mature app out there at the time, because I'm in like my late 40s. Like the other ones were not that. So that was like a big key for me, right? I had to be mature. I got a bunch of questions. I want to wait till the end, but are you married? Do you have a partner? Did you find your partner on one of these dating apps? Or you were lucky, not lucky, and I don't say the word lucky. I think it's lucky. Traditional, find somebody traditionally and not on the apps. How do you feel about me saying that? Not lucky to not find somebody on the app.
uh, I think basically when I'm single, I use dating apps. I meet people traditionally in every way possible. So I was single for many years, mostly because I was so focused on the company and just frankly being the face of it. So it felt like that was the phase of life that I was in. But I met people through our app, through other apps. Obviously, I try the competition, and then I meet people offline through friends, through activities, through whatever. So I don't have a problem with. I actually think it's a healthy thing to balance meeting people both ways, but I would say that dating apps generally are something that I think most people should consider a tool in their tool belt, and it's definitely changes the dating market and changes your ability to find somebody who maybe is a better fit than what you would find traditionally, because you're not so restricted to the networks that you happen to be in, or the location that you're in, or do they happen to go to the same bar or whatever meeting place. So
Well, I could tell you for me at the time, I was traveling a lot. My job was taking me all over the planet. I really didn't even have friends. I couldn't foster any relationship
mhm.
really at home. And so when suddenly I'm in a dating pool, I'm like, how am I supposed to meet anybody? I don't even know anybody. Plus, now COVID is just, we're a couple years, but I'm still dating someone inside of the COVID world too, right? So, bottom line was, if it wasn't for the apps, I don't know how I would have met anybody. But at the same time, I think, and there were two things. We're jumping in the time machine. There were two things for me about the app. One was the only way I thought I could even meet somebody, and two, that idea of intention. Though you fine grained it,
Mhm.
I knew that anybody I was talking to on the app, and I met, we knew we were talking about something romantic. This wasn't, which is so hard in a restaurant or a bar. If you meet somebody, it's always been my experience that somebody's like, they were more receptive to dating on the app than they were if you met somebody outside of the app.
Yeah, they opted into looking for a date, and that's a key point, right? So that's one of the big values I would say of dating apps in general, and ours in particular is we go more granular, as you said, and let you say exactly what you want with each person. Because trust me, you'll be swiping, and sometimes you're like, well, you know, that person is pretty hot, but I see some yellow or red flags that I might not want to date them long term. So that happens. To rewind a little bit, I did meet my partner through dating apps, and I do find that in general, most of our users come, when they give us reviews, when they email us, that sort of thing, they tell us that what they appreciate is that it feels like it's not just another Tinder clone. We're doing things differently. And you found your niche on Match, it sounds like. We want our users to find their niche with us. And it's important, whether it's with Down or with another app, that you find the audience, the pool of potential dates that it fits you well.
That's awesome, dude. One last thing. When I was traveling as much as I was traveling at the time, and now I find myself single, one of the things I thought would have been really good for me is like, you've traveled, right? So you're sitting in a lounge and you see people in the lounge all alone on their phones. And I always thought, how cool would it have been to know that somebody who's also lonely right now is going to be in this lounge waiting on a flight. And I could just set up, it didn't even have to be a date. I just set up a conversation just so I didn't have to be alone for 3 hours in this lounge. I'm sure there's somebody else that would have loved to have talked to me, right? Regardless of the romance stuff. So I was even thinking about building something like that at the time. Obviously, there's a difference between having an idea and executing, and you executed. And I try to tell people that all the time. You can have all the ideas on the planet, but you got to execute.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on that last bit because ideas are dime a dozen, and I've had literally thousands of pitches for apps. As soon as I tell somebody what my job is, like, oh, I have an app idea or I have a dating app idea, it's like, okay, patiently listen. But then usually, it's like, well, build it and think about how you're going to get to critical mass, because the marketing is frankly at least 50%, if not more. It's very hard to build that critical mass. Yeah.
If you looked at my phone, I maybe have, I'm probably the unusual one. I might have 20 apps on the phone. Honestly, a page and a half with a couple buckets. I don't have a lot of apps, but they say like there's something like 5 apps that everybody uses every day, and to be in that list is almost near impossible.
The average retention, like day one retention, these are users who downloaded the app on the first day and then return on the next one, is around 30% last time I checked. That's the average, right? So that means half of all apps are getting less than that. You can imagine a lot of apps are getting 10% retention, 15%, right? So you're losing almost all of the app users within that first 24 hours. And that's the hardest part. That is super crazy. Now, ours, we've invested so much time, frankly, in the last 2 years, especially on making that first day better, on improving that first day retention. And it's still hard. We're up way above our category average, but we're not up by, that top five that you mentioned. We're not up there yet. And we're striving to get there because that's super hard. Users just don't have the attention span or the patience for anything, and they're kind of finicky sometimes. One user would be like, I love this. The next user would have the exact same experience and be like, oh, it's such a horrible app, or accuse us of anything, right? And we're just like, where did that come from?
Yeah, man, it's impossible. It can feel impossible, but you don't give up and you keep pushing that forward. Okay, I, dude, I want to talk about this, but I really also want to talk about how you got here, because this has got to be a fascinating story. So give everybody. I always have a couple questions up front. One, what year did you graduate? What city were you in, and what year did you graduate high school? So let's start there. I got to age you a little bit. I mean, we're jumping in the time machine, dude.
So I'm from a small town in Pennsylvania called Hughesville, and population like 2,000 people. That's it. Yeah, middle of nowhere, northeastern PA. And I graduated in 2003, and then I eventually.
No, no, can't tell me anything else. Don't tell me anything
Oh, oh,
else.
oh, okay.
Graduated high school,
Graduated. Yes.
2003, small town. Dude, this is setting up like a Hallmark movie already, dude. I love this. Okay. Okay. Hallmark Town, 2003. Okay, perfect. And then, all right. And since you're an engineer, I got to ask you this question. Now, clear your mind. Don't think too hard. Okay, clear it. I want that first memory you have of working on a computer. I don't care what it is you were doing, but that very first memory of you on the keyboard, right? Something with a keyboard.
Do you remember back in the day, AOL used to send out, and like AOL and all the ISP competitors for dial-up internet used to send out those free trial discs, the CDs?
No,
No?
what?
Okay.
No,
They
I'm a
used to
little
just
older than you, so
spam these out mail, or like via mail, physical mail, snail mail to everybody. And that was how you got dial-up internet. So you would install the newest AOL package from the CD. I think they even did floppies before that, but my first memory was this CD. And then there were a lot of driver issues. So like the modem that we had in our PC wasn't selected, wasn't available with the AOL package. So my first memory was basically brute forcing the command, which is basically just like a bunch of just random symbols and characters, for the driver, the modem driver that we had, to try to get it to talk to AOL in the correct way. And
modem
after,
command. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And after like
yeah.
many days, I think I finally got it. And that was such a feeling of
Euphoric.
achievement. Yeah,
Yeah,
euphoric.
you're dancing. You were dancing. If we had video, we'd see you dancing. How old were you? Were you like 12 at the time? How old are you when that happens?
Yeah, I must have been around 12. It was pretty young, but I'm sure I used some computers before that, but that one really sticks out.
And then the adult supervision in the house said, "What are you doing? You can't do that," and shut it all down.
Oftentimes, yes. But then I found
That's
a way to
awesome, dude.
silence the dial-up noise. You know that awful like screeching noise? I
Oh
found a way to
yeah,
silence
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you found the command for that. So adult supervision didn't know you were online at that point
exactly.
until they tried to pick up the phone and needed to make a call.
That was always the worst.
Oh my god, dude. That's I think one of my favorite answers to that question. That is awesome.
You put me
That
on
is
the
cool.
spot, but yeah.
No, man, that's a great first memory. So in such a small town, which is a really bad maybe lead into this question. Did you have any sort of programming in the classroom? You must have been in one of those schools that was like, was it elementary, junior, and high school all kind of in the same building?
It was middle school and high school, so like ninth through 12th grade, and it was high school, and then they had seventh and eighth kind of in a different wing. Yeah, we had a programming course. I want to say it was JavaScript in 11th grade, but I started messing around with Visual Basic and stuff like that way before that, and I think even some JavaScript with building websites in HTML at the time. So that was my first programming course, but by then I was already pretty hooked on messing around with computers.
So tell me about your high school years a little bit. Were you, especially in such a small school, if you're into sports, you have to play every sport because you just don't have enough like kids playing, or you have to do. I find the story is in these small towns that you have to do everything because there just isn't enough kids to do things. So, kind of what were you really into in high school? What was, other than being in a classroom, right? When you're outside of the classroom, what's eating up most of your time? What do you want to be spending your time on?
So I love soccer. I played it a lot in high school and, all the way since I was 4 years old. Then I picked up tennis, so I played that as well. Played basketball till eighth grade or so. So I was definitely into sports, but at the same time, I started, definitely diving into computers and everything from building them to programming to websites. And then I started my first business when I was 16 and spent a lot of my free time doing that, which actually was very difficult. I wouldn't want to start that company again, but it helped me pay for the first year of college.
All right. So, oh, now see, now we got a story here, man. So, talk to me about 16, starting your own. What was this business?
Yeah, was it six? It might have been 15 or 16, but it was basically a help company, a computer help company. So I would just go and like do house calls like a computer doctor and fix all of their setup issues. A lot of times it was, virus and other stuff going on, but maybe it was hardware failure and then I'd have to order the new part, replace it and all that stuff. So kind of a combination.
How did that start, dude? How did that start? Was it like a family member or a neighbor needing help and they paid you like a little money and you were like, "Whoa."
Exactly. So many friends and family members were just begging for help. And they're like, oh, I have a friend or, somebody I work with that needs this help. And that's when I started to say, well, okay, I can charge these people, the strangers, right? And, I built a site. I think, yeah, I was even on some national TV show. I don't know if you remember the guy, Leo Laporte. He was on Tech TV.
No, I don't remember that.
It was some
That's
like
cool.
very high cable channel, very technical, like focused computer support TV show, and um, I still have the video. I think of
Yeah, yeah,
him.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I need to see video of that, man. We got to put that in the show or something. You must have been so excited when when this show reaches out. Like, did that help build some more business too? Did it get to a point where you were just overwhelmed? Like, I gotta do some schoolwork here.
No, honestly, I felt schoolwork was pretty easy overall. So I don't think had that problem, but it definitely built more business. It was definitely, we're in that small town. The nearest city was like 20 miles away, and so I started to get some business out there as well.
So you needed to drive at that point. You're not driving at 15. Like, are your
Learner
parents
from
driving you around?
16, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, once you had the car, it was game over.
Yep, exactly.
Wow. And you had an okay, okay. This is really cool. And it wasn't that easy to fix these machines back then. To be, if somebody doesn't realize it, you needed, like, you were moving jumpers around sometimes on the boards,
Exactly,
and
yeah.
it was fairly technical, and sometimes you didn't have the instructions, and so you're leveraging experience trying to bounce switches. And I mean, that's really cool at like 15, 16. Like, you really understand how these machines work, bro. That's not a joke.
There was so much trial and error as yeah. So like yeah, obviously you tried to search what you could, but most of the times trial and error and frankly, like a lot of the customers didn't know either. So it was trying to teach them how to avoid some of the issues that maybe they ran into.
Yeah, no, you're talking like the 99, 2000, like I was being paid to do that stuff professionally that you're doing. It actually it didn't force me, but it pushed me into software development, that kind of work, because every once in a while you'd run into a situation where you can't fix it without buying hardware. And I hated that feeling. I hated feeling helpless. Hated it, right? And I said, I write software. I'm never going to feel helpless because it's my bug.
I totally get that. In fact, I remember one time I ran into this issue where whatever, I basically had to copy the network settings across this business network, like 200 plus computers they had. And the only way that I could find to do it was manually. So then I was like, all right, screw that. I'm going to make a program that automatically connects through the intra network and will duplicate these files. And then I ended up publishing the program. And, in the early days of like posting freeware for PCs, that kind of took off. And I was like, oh, okay, there's a real niche, but a need for it, right?
Yeah, you're not the only one with that pain point. So you're even in the early days of open source, Colin, because that's essentially what you're doing there. You're providing open source.
Very close. I don't think I really like thought deeply about should I open source the code, but the program was free, and I didn't make any money off of it. So give it for free, and at least people could use it.
Wait. You were sharing the binary.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We don't do that anymore, right? Because you put a virus in that thing, man. I mean, now my stomach hurts thinking that somebody just trusted Colin. Look, man, you could have put some malware on. You could have been like in the Hackers movie, dude. You could have been that guy. I can't remember
Oh,
his
I have a
name.
story about that too in high school.
And from high school,
Yeah,
I
yes.
need to hear it now.
All
We're in
right,
high school
cool.
years. We're in the time machine in high school years. So
Great. Indulge me a little. So, another vivid memory I have about like early computers and how I just felt that rush was when I think I was maybe 14 or 15. This one kid in my computers class, he thought he was kept messing with like the I think we had like really old Mac, what were they called, the iMacs or something like that. So he kept messing with like all sorts of things in the classroom and almost kind of bragging a little bit like, oh, I'm so smart, I'm a great hacker and all this stuff. So I found basically I forget what that was called, but like basically some script that would exploit a weakness, I think in AOL Instant Messenger, the app, program on his PC, or maybe it was something else. But either way, it exploited this so that I could plant any file I wanted on his system, open that file, and do other things like open the CD drive and close it repeatedly. So one day I actually did that to him, and within a few days he came in and I heard him talking about it. Had to fess up and be like, "Yeah, my bad, man. Like, I thought it'd be funny, but it's just me, and I didn't do anything else. Like, don't worry."
yeah, man, that's. I think we all have little stories like that. But at that age, hacking that in there is, yeah, you have a talent, right? So you got. It's obvious in high school here you have a talent for this and you're enjoying it. So as you're about to graduate high school, where's your head? I'm going to assume you're thinking I want to go into computer science.
Yeah, I was trying to make up my mind between computer engineering and computer science. I think I knew I wanted to do one of those by the time I was like 16, 17. And then, um, yeah, I checked out all the schools I could and, eventually went to Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland. It's a very good engineering school, but pretty small.
Yeah, I'm not sure I heard of that. In Cleveland, of all places, you go to Ohio. You could go anywhere you want, Colin.
Big, mistakes were made. And so I transferred
What?
after the first year. So
Okay, I'm just curious. You just thought that was going to be a good place, or was it financial? Was it just wanting to get out of the house? Was it?
it was a combination of financial. And I think I also had this mistaken idea, being from a small town, that I think I was a little worried that I would be a little fish in a big pond if I go to a bigger school. and if I go too far away from home, because that was still within 5 6 hours driving. And then some of the other schools that I think are better known names than that one, Carnegie Mellon, Stanford, MIT. I applied to them, and one, I think I got into most, but not into the computer science department. So I was worried about, am I going to have to like switch over at some point? Is that going to be too hard? So yeah, but then I transferred after the first year, and we can get into that too.
No, no, I wanted to talk about it because you do your year there, and it sounds like you felt like this really wasn't where you needed to be. But was it because of the classes, or was it just because of the atmosphere?
I definitely struggled to adapt to the classes. I came from that small town, and I was like one of the brightest there. And then I get to this these college courses where you actually have to like learn how to learn on your own and study. It's not easy. And I had a bit of a struggle the first semester, but then after that, I started to figure it out more. And the biggest thing was I just felt like isolated. I wish I made more of an effort that freshman year at being more social and learning who I am as a person. Instead of, frankly, I was focused on my long distance girlfriend and just not being social enough. So after I applied to transfer to Cornell University, and once I got there, I really opened up, thankfully, and learned a lot about myself, and did pretty well with the computer science program.
But that's interesting. So you go to Cornell, and you just feel more comfortable in Cornell. What about your long distance relation? I'm assuming she was younger.
We were
Your
the
partner
same
was
age.
younger.
We were the
Oh,
same
same age.
age. We both, it's like ridiculous looking back on it. So we started dating senior year of high school. We were like 5 hours apart freshman year and like all that stuff. But then we both transferred to Ithaca, which is where Cornell is. She went to Ithaca College. I went to Cornell. And within 5 months, 6 months, we broke up. So,
Of course. But you look back on it now, and it's like, of course.
of course, yeah. And we're still good friends. And it was like definitely the right move to transfer either way. But it's just hilarious that how life works.
I wonder that when when they were there with you in Ithaca, and then that whole relationship, it almost gave you permission to just be yourself at that point and be free. I wouldn't be shocked if that was just holding you back in the first university at some level.
I think you're spot on. Yeah. So, anybody that asks me, like, should I take my high school sweetheart with me to college? I'm like, no. So just break up. I mean,
well, well, yeah, but
no,
yeah,
no, I'm
I
joking, but
yeah, yeah. I exact. Right, just do it the right way. Wait till you're there and realize that you both want to meet new people, and you start right. It's any relationship. I don't care if it's new or old. Right, either you're going to do this
Mhm.
or you're going to do this. And the moment you start doing this and you don't correct, it's over. And at that age, it's almost impossible for you both not to go in different directions. It's just impossible. It can happen. People marry their high school sweethearts and get all the way through, and they're just really good at staying on that same track.
Yeah, but it is rare. Yeah.
It's rare. It's rare. It's rare. Okay, so now you're at Cornell doing. I went to SUNY Potsdam, by the way. That's where I went to school in the late '80s. Graduated in '91. A little older than you. Um, I lived on the island of Long and really wanted to get far away from the home. So I went as far as you could in New York, through the Adirondacks. Um, I had a great time in Potsdam. I had a hard time balancing school and the partying to the point where I had to take 28 credits. I was never a senior. I had to take 28 credits. My mom calls me up. She goes, "This is your last semester, so you better figure it out." And I had like 28 credits left. And that's a whole nother story for another
That
day. But I
sounds like a hell of a
graduated. Okay.
semester. Yeah.
I'm not even in the yearbook, not even in the yearbook because I was never a senior. So these schools in New York are tough, man, because you're in the middle of nowhere. There's not much to do other than gather, drink, party, and then try to balance school. I imagine you were having maybe some of the same problems I did.
I would say I definitely partied, especially the last 2 years of college. But for me, it wasn't as hard to balance that because the curriculum for computer science was just it was really tough, and even trying pretty hard, I was, middle of the class. I felt like nothing, few classes I excelled, but in terms of like overall GPA and stuff, it was not that impressive. So that was part of it. But looking back, I learned so much about who I am through the socializing, through the partying, through the other activities like, club soccer and stuff like that, that I was, frankly, I value that part of the education as much as I do the computer science stuff.
I was sad when I had to graduate, but it didn't hit me that I had to graduate. And I don't know if you do this, but almost everybody comes back the next semester as a graduate just to have that one more party with everybody. And then you're in that room and you realize I don't belong here anymore.
I wish we did that. Wow.
You didn't go back even one time to just have beers
No,
like
I
on a
think most
weekend?
people spread out. So I went to Seattle, far away from New York. Yeah, and then I went. I visited a few times, including like as a recruiting for Microsoft and stuff. But I think the next time that like the whole group was back was our 5-year reunion, and that definitely felt weird. But we still partied just similarly.
It does feel weird because you're in a different time zone at that point, and you want to be back in that moment, and you're not. You're now here. It's kind of moved on. But talk to me about that. Okay, so you're going to graduate. Okay, you're going to get this degree. At that point, as you're nearing the degree, you're applying for jobs? Like, what's in your head? Where do you want to go? You said Seattle, so I'm assuming Microsoft, but I could be wrong.
So I did an internship at Microsoft and Amazon during 2 of the summers, and I decided to that Microsoft just
The internship over there, you got an internship, and you had to hang out in Seattle.
exactly like Redmond for Microsoft, and then Seattle proper for Amazon. So both were good, but Microsoft just felt way more like a family, and just I guess way more flexible. So I ended up there, and I had a close call where I also had a girlfriend in college and almost took a job in New Jersey to be close to her and all that stuff, but dodged another bullet there. And Seattle was wonderful to me. I spent almost 5 years there.
When you applied to those internships, I'm sure you're not the only one from Cornell doing that, but did you feel like this was going to happen, or did you feel like I had no chance, but I have to apply? And how did you even hear about these internships?
I think at the time they did send a few recruiters to Cornell, and they had job fairs and stuff like that. I didn't think I had much of a chance, and in fact, I started as uh, an SDET intern, which is software developer engineer in test. So it's a lot of testing and automation and strategy on how to find what's wrong with the product and catch it before it goes out, and all that stuff. Which, frankly, outside of the company and within the company, a lot of people kind of look down on. They weren't seen as high quality as the engineers or the program managers. So um, I kind of resented that a little bit, and I also wanted to do other stuff. So um, when I applied for multiple positions, and that's the one I ended up snagging.
How did you pay for all that? Are you working when you're at Cornell making some money, or how do you pay to be out in Seattle for the summer, or
So
Washington?
Microsoft and Amazon pay their interns pretty damn well, actually. So I mean, it doesn't sound like too much now, but even as an intern, I think they were paying us 5K a month. So it was enough to live for sure. Yeah.
Oh, for sure, dude. You're living large. If you do it right too, you got a lot of nice pocket money.
Oh yeah, and
So,
I think they provided housing too. Yeah. So
oh
it's
wow,
definitely pocketed some money. Yeah.
housing. Oh wow. So as you're graduating and you've done these internships, your brain is going, I want to work at Microsoft full time. This is what I want to do. I'm guessing because you've been an intern, it gets a little easier to be able to sort of apply and start getting that job even before you graduate.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely did. I had offers for full time from a few Microsoft teams and then from Amazon. So that was obviously nice to already bank those and have those. And I interviewed a bunch of other places as well. I think for me though, the biggest question was and decision point was I knew eventually I wanted to be an entrepreneur and start my own company again, but I didn't have any partner or co-founder at the time, and I thought, all right, I guess I'll just suck it up and go learn in the corporate world for a while and hopefully pay back a lot of these student loans, and then I can strike out on my own. So I gave myself 2 years in the full-time job, and that was my deadline originally, to leave and strike out on my own.
Okay, but did you have a product idea already in your head?
I had quite a few, but I don't remember what they were now, to be honest. Yeah.
No, that's fine. But you had a few ideas already in your head. It wasn't like I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'll figure out what the product is later. You had
Yeah, yeah, definitely some ideas bouncing around, but it's very hard to know at that age and with that experience if any of them are worth pursuing.
all right. So let's see. You said you graduated high school in what 2003. So we're like around
Exactly. Yeah.
2007. You're now you're now in
Seattle. Yeah. Yeah.
you went to Redmond. Okay, so you're in Redmond. I've been to that office a couple of times, maybe like 10, 8 years ago. So I mean, it's a much bigger campus than what you experienced back in 2007 now. But I know exactly what you're saying. Everybody there just always felt relaxed and having fun, like building good tech, but also it was more relaxed than when I say ever walked into a Google office. Everybody in the Google office looked just serious and I don't know. So I feel that vibe that you're talking about over there.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job with the interns, frankly, to just keep them busy doing all sorts of activities and socializing and throwing parties and hiking trips and soccer and all this stuff that I was like, wow, this feels like an extension of college. And then once I got there, I realized that they really did try to accommodate that work-life balance thing, and that was really cool. Amazon felt a lot more like, and I think Google as well, from what I've heard, a lot more like you put in your time and make all your money, and then you leave. So
So what was the job that you got? What was the first job you got? It wasn't the testing thing anymore, right? Or was that's where you ended up landing?
yeah, so I landed on the Windows Mobile, if you can remember that stuff.
Oh man, like the window phones
Yeah,
when
yeah.
they were
So I landed
yeah.
there right when they were working on the first version of Windows Phone.
Oh.
So I was still SDET, so I was still doing test automation stuff. And man, that the first few versions of Windows Phone were actually really good. I still we still like them. I have a few friends, and we're like, yeah, it's just a shame that the marketing failed so hard on that.
It's a hard market anyway.
Yeah. So I landed there, and then I told myself I'd stay 2 years. 4.5 years later, I finally quit. And
Okay, slow down, slow down, slow down. I'm not shocked you were there for 4.5 years. Just because it's a cool environment and you're learning, and it's a great thing to have on your resume. But I love these moments when somebody says, I quit. Like, okay, like what's happening in your life at that point where you decide that this isn't the right place for me anymore?
yeah,
Because now we're talking, wait. 2003, we said you got there 2007. Now it's almost like 2012. I like having the years because it kind of forms the tech and the environment we were sort of in at the time. Because you were there actually at a good time for the 2008 crash of the world, and you were super secure. You probably didn't even feel 2008. A bunch of us talk about 2008, and you're like, what's going on, man? I was at Microsoft. Life was good.
pretty much.
So it's like 2012 now, and what's going on, dude? Why do you decide I'm done here?
So let me rewind. So I think iPhone launched in 2009. Is that right? 2008 or 9?
I think I got my first phone probably around there,
So the App Store for Windows Phone launched.
or maybe earlier. Actually, it had to be earlier than 2009, dude.
Okay, it might have been 2008.
2007, which
Wait, it
makes more
really did.
sense.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because I had my first business in 2004, and I remember having the iPhone before that crashed, and we crashed in 2008. So 2007 seems to make more sense. So yeah, 2007 is the first iPhone release.
Great. Yeah. So I think the App Store for iPhone and for Windows Phone started to come out a few years after that. And so I started to build apps for it. And on the side, I started to explore, should I be a program manager instead, which instead of doing
Wait.
coding.
Time out.
Mhm.
Time out. You were building apps for the iPhone?
For Windows Phone.
Okay, all right, that makes more sense because like I'm in Microsoft, but I really believe in this iPhone. Okay, so you're building apps. Did you use like Visual Basic at the time to build those apps?
I think C Sharp, Visual Studio with C Sharp. Yeah.
Okay, C Sharp lets you build the mobile apps for the phone, and you're doing this on the side, or you're doing this as part of your job?
Completely on the side. But because I was using the phone and testing it all the time, and I knew a bunch, I could get in contact with the App Store team and all that stuff. I was, one of the first 100 apps on, I think. And I launched a few things, and it was fun. I just had fun creating on my own again because so much being in the Borg of Microsoft, and you feel just like, okay, this is my tiny area, and I can't have real impact in this area. So being in control of something again and just running with the creativity and late nights coding again was really fun.
30 seconds. What did these apps do? Were they games?
I started the first one, yeah, just messing around with like a simple like children's game, trying to figure out how to use the touch controls and the visual aspects and all that. Then I kind of started my streak of, let's say, raunchy apps. So I made the first,
Raunchy
yeah,
apps.
I made the
Like what?
first vibrator app for Windows Phone.
Oh my God, there's a dark side to Colin here that I need another 2 hours to explore, but that's hilarious. And that app did well.
It did all right, yeah, yeah. And then
That's funny.
I stayed kind of
Raunchy
in that
apps.
vein, but went
What a
more
great
social.
company name. Wait, Colin, you got to have a company called Raunchy Apps, man.
That is a great name.
You better go and get the domain after this. After we're done
Raunchy apps. All
talking,
right, I'm taking notes right now.
you got to get that domain, man. Raunchyapps.io, just to make it a little bit more technical.
Love
Somebody's got to have that already, but you got to have that, man.
it.
All right, all right. I interrupted you, and I don't remember where your thought was because that was just too
Oh,
awesome,
yeah.
man.
Well, then I
Raunchy apps.
started to lean into the social apps. So I had this idea, basically like AirPlay, AirDrop, and that sort of thing handles it now. But back then, there wasn't a way to really transfer files to people near you without really complicated um, setups. And so I made an app called Flick and Share, and the idea is you literally flick an image off the screen, and it goes to anybody near you using GPS location to figure out who's actually near you. So
And
you
what
don't have to use
protocol?
Bluetooth. So it's over internet.
Over internet. But you have to, so you were able to discover the phone, wire transfer that. Oh, because you had peer to peer networking on the app.
So it actually still went through the internet through my server instead of going peer to peer because it what I figured out was it is nice to do it, within 10, 20 feet, whatever, but a lot of people wanted the social aspect as well. And so to be more social, you want people who aren't so near you but are in your city, maybe in your neighborhood. And so people would share something like, oh, the ideal was, okay, there's this cool view or historical landmark, or, I saw this at something here. So I would share it and the GPS location would be tagged and people near there could see that. Now, of course, being a social app and myself being kind of raunchy, it turns into what you'd expect. And there's a lot of let's just say policing that I have to do in terms of the
There's a
content.
lot of adult content flying around your server. Yeah, you got to be careful too, because some of that adult content's illegal.
Yeah, it became overwhelming, and I had to shut it down at some point.
I was just watching a movie. What was the movie? Where actually, it's not even a movie; it's a TV show. I just started watching it on Apple TV, where it's a gaming. You know why I'm watching it? It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Favorite
So you got
show.
Rob.
Yeah,
So Rob, yeah. So Rob McElhaney and what's his name?
Ryan
Charlie
Reynolds.
Day.
Oh, Charlie Day. Okay.
No, Charlie Day. There's a show. It's a little older, but it's called Mystic Quest. Mystic Quest.
Yes, I've seen it.
I
Yeah.
just started watching it. Okay, but they talk about first episode. They talk about a shovel, and Rob's screaming like the shovel's no good. It's no good if somebody can't like make a. I'm going to use a bad word here, so cover your ears. If they can't, if somebody can't create it in a game, then that thing is no good. And at the very end, right there, the kid is digging a big, large penis, right?
Right.
And you just made me think about that with that tech, right? If you can do that, somebody's going to do it. That was basically the theme of that show, right? If
It's
somebody can
human
do something
nature for
raunchy,
sure. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's going to happen. Oh my God, Colin, there you go, raunchy. You got to get this. You got to get this domain. All right, so you have to shut this down because it's getting out of control here. And plus, you didn't even. I guess was there cloud that server was that being hosted by Microsoft somewhere?
No, I didn't use my Microsoft resources for that. I think
Yeah,
I just used a private host. This was pre AWS, I think, or at least before I could afford AWS.
all right. So we're trying to learn why you're leaving Microsoft. So you had these apps that you're building, and then so what happens in 2000? What did we say? 12, 13?
I think I started building the apps so that I could prove to myself that, at one, I would put in the effort to do this, that I didn't become too like comfortable at Microsoft, and that I really wanted to pursue this, see if any of them gained traction. Not necessarily financial traction, because I didn't really try to monetize any of them, but more just, in terms of the user base and all that. And that file sharing, the photo sharing one, gained enough traction to give me more confidence. And then the last thing on my mind was, I think I mentioned it, but I was thinking of switching roles and staying at Microsoft instead. And so if I could become a program manager, I felt maybe I can be the one to decide what is the product, what are the features, have more of that control and impact, and feel like I wasn't just kind of taking orders. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I just hit a dead end. I talked to tons of PMs, I interviewed for a few roles, and I never got a job offer for the PM role at Microsoft during that time after maybe 6 months or so of doing this. So then I was like, all right, well, I'm loving working on these apps. Like I'm staying up all night doing it, right? Coding, and then doing the marketing and stuff. So why don't I just quit? I build a bit of a nest egg and strike out on my own and see what I can build these into.
I feel like being a PM at that time would have been a mistake because you're too young to kind of walk away from the engineering. And I think you would have realized very soon that you're losing your most important skill set and the thing that you love doing the most. I think it was a blessing that nobody gave you that position. I think I see you constantly moving towards this idea of being a business person and that part. But I always get scared when somebody that young is walking away from their engineering chops because that's your safety net for forever, right? If everything else falls apart, you can always go back and write code. And you walk away from that too early, you lose the skill.
Yeah, I like that perspective. I definitely agree that it was a blessing in disguise. At the time, it was devastating, though. Especially, I had plenty of friends who were PMs, and I felt kind of, inferior to them. Like, what? I'm not smart enough to pass the interviews like they did. So now, looking back, I'm like, all right, blessing in disguise. But at the time, it hit me hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I try to tell people, look, I'm going to be 54 in a couple months. So I've seen a lot and I've been through a lot. And I'm always trying to tell people when they're in these really low moments, like you were there, that in a year from now, like, we're going to be laughing about that. Just keep moving forward. Don't give up. Keep moving forward, and you're going to see, right? This change was a good thing. It wasn't a bad thing. At least for my entire life, I can look back on everything and just say, okay, I'm really glad that did happen, and I'm glad I fought through it at the time. So it's the same sort of thing here with that role.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, but definitely takes a few hard lessons to understand that.
You leave Microsoft. You're gonna basically self fund this first project. You have a partner, a business partner on this. It's just going to be.
I was solo, except I recruited like a part-time designer who happened to be a girlfriend, and uh, so I had some extra help. But to be honest, it was pretty much
But what are you going to
99% of
build
the
again? So what's your idea? What are you going to build in 2013?
Yeah, so at first I was still doing, so this was still 2011 and then 12. I was still doing the photo sharing thing. And then at some point, really got into this idea of basically just curiosity on how people meet their romantic partners, how can guys actually do well in the dating market, and how can women find what they want and all that stuff. So,
Yeah. Why is this floating in your head, Colin? You have a partner. Okay.
Mhm.
So it's not like you're, oh, maybe, but and we could talk about it now, maybe, but is it you just wondering like, yeah, no, I don't want to put any words in your head. So why are you thinking about this right now at that moment in time?
I think ever since I came out of my shell, let's say in college at Cornell, I was basically saw it as like a skill I had to learn. Like, how do you make friends? How do you be more social? How do you know, flirt with women, and how do you get them to like you and all this stuff? Because I was kind of shy as a kid and in high school especially, and I wasn't that guy. So I thought like, okay, this is a skill I have to learn. And it felt really good just to indulge this side and learn this stuff. So even though I had a girlfriend, we weren't that serious at the time, but I had a girlfriend, and I was talking to friends, and this only thing that was available then was basically these old school dating websites like OkCupid's original version or Match.com and all that stuff. No apps yet. And I said, it's pretty weird how you have to fill out this super long profile and questionnaire and spend literally hours every day if you want to be successful on this stuff. So there's got to be another way, and that's why I was just curious about how to do this and help building this skill, and frankly it
All right,
was a
I got
thrill.
to interrupt you, Colin. I got to interrupt you. Two things. Two things. One, my guess is my guess is that anytime that you really wanted to have a girlfriend, you had a girlfriend. I don't think you necessarily had a problem with that.
Not
And
true.
then, okay, that's fair. That's fair. And two, okay, knowing even my wife, if you're turning around and saying, I'm going to build this dating app, she's got to be saying, why do you need a dating app? Why do you want to build a dating app? You're going to be on the dating app? Oh, right. And now you start to throw sort of questions into the current relationship. It's got to be really hard to be with somebody when you say, I'm I'm building and running and managing a dating app because you get to be on this app all day long, and that's kind of a scary thing.
Yeah, I think so. First of all, definitely had plenty of times that I struggled to have a girlfriend. But as far as how my girlfriend back then handled it, I think she might have suspected something like that. But frankly, it was like I was so driven by the creation of it, by the entrepreneurship, that it wasn't much usage. If she was worried about that, it was a bigger worry that I don't know, just go to a bar or to use an existing dating site, right? Because I was building from zero, right? So there's nobody nearby that I could actually meet. I think after I pivoted the idea from just like a general dating app where you could meet through friends to what became Bang with Friends, and I moved to a different state, she was like, "Oh, I see. Okay, now that's related." Yeah.
Okay. There's just almost no way around it. It's just I don't think there's any way around that. So, but okay, let me get back to this. Because you said the traditional apps wanted you to fill out these long forms, and at this time I'm married with my first wife, but I remember the eHarmony, I think it was eHarmony, where they were trying to use a little AI, fill out this profile, and we've got they didn't use AI at the time, right? But we're going to match you perfectly because
Our
we've got these
algorithm matches
points.
you perfectly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were like, screw the algorithm. Let's just let people find each other themselves.
I was always skeptical of their claims of having this brilliant algorithm, and that you needed to answer, I think, 250 plus questions for that. That I was super skeptical of it. But even so, it felt like, especially for me, I was in my mid 20s, that was not what I was looking for at all. That was a bit over heavy-handed, let's say. Um, and I think the competition at the time just really didn't feel like it was at all mainstream. There was a huge stigma on dating sites back then, and it was only years later, 2014, 15, that the stigma really started to shrink away, I would say.
How long does it take you to build this first? How long does it take you to build this first to get it out in a general release?
So the first version was like just a Facebook web canvas app. So it wasn't even on a phone yet. And that took me, I want to say, probably about 3 months to build it once I was felt I was ready. But I did.
Facebook was smart. So you built the first one with the idea that I already have a captive audience there in Facebook.
Yeah, and it depended on the network that you have. So the idea was a lot of people prefer to meet through somebody safe that they know. And so you can see your friends of friends and try to date them. So one step removed from all your friend network. And that's where Facebook really was supposed to come in. Um, Now, there are all sorts of problems with that model. We don't have to get into it, but that's what I built it on. It took me about 3 months. And then I would say about 6 to 9 months of testing with, doing user focus groups, going and even like organizing and running an event where singles would come and I would get them to sign up and they would try things out, and they would get a free drink in return and stuff like that.
All right, two questions there. I'm curious what your tech stack was at the time. Were you able to market that online where people, I don't know how Facebook works because I'm not on Facebook. So was this like a plugin that somebody would have? Did you have to run ads? I see you're doing local stuff, but that's not scalable. So what was your tech stack? And then how are you getting this thing viral?
Yeah, I think at the time it was Ruby on Rails hosted on Heroku. And obviously for the front end, I use some gems to generate the CSS and HTML and stuff like that. And then probably just PostgreSQL for the simple database. And then with the way the Facebook apps worked is you just provide a canvas URL, so your web app URL, and it fits within the
It's like an
basically the X
iframe.
frame. Yeah, exactly, the iframe. Sorry, for Facebook apps. So you would see the Facebook Chrome and all that stuff around it, and then you could interact, make certain calls to like the graph. They called it Facebook Graph QL or something like that.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Everything you've done up to this point too gets big over being just viral, right? Like you're eventually you get enough people that see it, and then you get that hockey stick. But this one, you're actually spending time trying to develop an audience for it. I mean, you're having local events.
Yeah, that was when I was still in Seattle running this dating site, trying to get it off the ground. And I think at most I had a few hundred people. It really was not much. I joined an online accelerator for startups and did like a weekly check in and a pitch practice and all this stuff to try to get attention and get investment. Um, and then some accelerator down in San Mateo, California noticed me. And that's when I took the chance and moved down there, and things could actually take off. So that's when the pivot to Bang with Friends happened, and things basically, I got drunk one night and admitted to myself and to my colleagues in the accelerator that I had no
I
chance of
love you,
succeeding.
man.
That too. I love
There's
you,
one of
man.
the I love you, man nights. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, man. Yeah. I
But
told
Noah,
them
what did you admit? Yeah.
I
What did you
told
admit?
them flat out. I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to raise any money. I think I'm going to fail. I don't see a way to get traction on this. I don't see, it succeeding, and I got to change something. And, you know, many drinks led to the conversation of, instead of meeting friends of friends, isn't it a lot more curious and interesting to find out which of your existing Facebook friends wants to sleep with you? And that's when Bang with Friends was born, and everybody around the office got excited and just thought it was this like hilarious joke. But once we started to really like build it and push it out to friends, they they loved it. They shared it with others. They wanted more features, and it really took off from there.
Well, one, you created a conversation about something that was quote unquote taboo. You were you were heading in the Ashley Madison, I would almost say, realm of this wasn't affairs. Everybody I hope was single, but still this sort of taboo. You didn't talk about that. You're cute, but I can't talk to you because we're in this circle, right? You opened up the door.
Yeah, and it was that blind match, right? So they didn't know that you're interested unless they also selected you in the app.
Oh, dude, now I just the Pina Colada song. That was it right there.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
That they're both in the newspaper looking for somebody, and they end up at the bar, and they're like together.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what a brilliant idea! That was a brilliant. I could see people talking. In fact, I'm going to talk to my wife about that after our show today. Right? Like, yeah, you created a conversation.
Yeah, and the time when I knew that this had legs, that this had potential, was when I shared it with people and their eyes just lit up and they're like, "What did you create? This is amazing!" Like, I getting that visceral reaction from somebody about an idea is just the most valuable feedback I've ever gotten, and I want all my ideas to have some level of reaction. The worst thing is people are just ambivalent about it. That just to me says, okay, it's not innovative enough or it's not interesting enough. Get them excited and get them to react, and that's good.
You want their brain running 1,000 miles an hour once they hear it, like my brain did. I wonder, however, uh, and maybe what people don't understand sometimes is that moment you're in has a different culture and a way of doing things than others. So what today would not work would have been fine, say 10 years ago. And so maybe there's some bias with that when I say this, but bang with friends seems controversial, but part of my brain says, is that the best name for this thing? Do you ever, at the time, was that like the right name? Or do you look back on it now and think maybe that was a little too raunchy for the name? And the name feels interesting to me, and I don't know how to feel about it.
I guess where I landed on it was the right name for a shooting straight out of the rocket sort of launch. It really built that traction so quickly, and so there were some problems that came with that. Right, we had worldwide attention and users, which means, but your users are all scattered. So instead of launching city by city and making sure those users have a positive experience, you have people joining all over the world, but their friends aren't on it yet, and all that stuff. So it's less controlled, more chaos. And I guess as part of that, I still am thankful that we went with that name. But we got sued by Zynga because they had a trademark on words with friends and similar games like that. So we changed our name as part of that, and now we're Down. Down is definitely easier and a bit less in your face, but to a lot of people,
But is the idea of down like I'm down with it? Is that the idea of down?
Down is flexible.
I'm
So
down with
it
it.
could be, yeah, are you down, or I'm down with it, or
Okay.
DTF, or all sorts of
I, let me
interpretations.
I want to pull you into the tech stack a little bit because you have built something that is about to get 1 million users overnight. So is this still the same Heroku, Ruby, Postgres tech stack that is about to explode? And Heroku can handle it because they had containers before we even talked about containers. So I feel like they could grow with it. Did you have problems with your tech stack overnight? Did Heroku just handle that workload?
Yeah, once things really took off in the press and through word of mouth, we had 10,000 users joining in one day, and many more using it at the same time. So things crashed a lot. We were still on Heroku. We were still on the same setup, same stack. And then I had to, I had never scaled any tech product like this. So I had to really scramble and try to figure out how do I keep things just responding. It wasn't fast at all, right? But at least don't go completely dark, so that we could sign up those users.
And what was the? I'm really curious what your solution. What was the band-aids that you were putting
Oh my
on
God.
this thing?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, Heroku did make some things easier, right? So they did, like, you could upgrade the instance size for your database, and upgrade all sorts of, basically pull all sorts of levers. But I also found out very quickly that a lot of the issue was, just how we had coded it. For instance, SQL queries being super inefficient and needing to rewrite those, or switching over to raw SQL instead of using the stuff within Rails to generate
Yeah,
it,
the
stuff like that.
ORMs
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and not having the right indexes, and these
Exactly.
are they're like good problems to have, except when they're happening, it's not good.
Yeah, definitely one of those things you look back, you're like, oh, I'm awesome problem to have. Yeah, it's better than not having that problem. But on the other hand, man, I pulled so many all-nighters just trying to fix that, and I didn't have a lot of resources or a lot of people I could lean on who had done it before either.
And it's really hard. People don't understand at this point. It's almost impossible to rewrite because you got to continue to add features for your users. You got to keep it running. You almost have to have a budget for a separate dev team to kind of rewrite and redo the architecture. It's always a catch 22 at this point.
It is. And I mean, even to this day, there are some small pieces that I wrote in our back end, and the team would call out and be like, what the hell were you thinking here? You know?
What I call it the what kind of drugs were you on when you did this and why you're not sharing them with me?
Yes, exactly.
But at the same time, when you're saying that, I try to teach engineers everything is done with a purpose. And so don't judge just yet. Appreciate that that code has given you a job. At some level, that code has kept the company going enough where you're now working and looking at it. So ask the question about what was going on at the time when you wrote this.
That's a good reminder. I need to tell my team to listen to this podcast.
So that product is still running today, 10 years later, but is it still running on Ruby?
It is. At some point, we did some microservices in Go, and there's some other random pieces, but backend is still primarily on Ruby on Rails. And we did switch over to other cloud providers. But yeah, things are a lot more complicated and sophisticated now on the back end. So, as the president of the company, thankfully, I'm not mucking up all the back end code right now.
What are they writing? What are they? I'm always fascinated. I'm a back end engineer. Okay. In fact, in my company, I'm not even allowed to talk to the designers because I've been told that I'm bad at front end and design. Like I draw boxes and then I tell the front ends to make them look pretty, right? But what tech are you using for the mobile apps? Because I'm always fascinated by how you're going to build a mobile app for every platform that's still performant.
Yeah, I think partially because of our legacy, from 10-ish years ago, it's always been native code on both Android and iOS. And so we've changed the app language, right? So, obviously it was Objective-C on iOS, and now it's probably half Swift, and we've switched over, part of it. And then on Android, it used to be Java, now it's Kotlin, or however you say it. And that is uh, again an evolution, but we just stayed native the whole time. I think if I were going to start a new project, I would probably want to try again, because it's been a few years, try again one of the cross-platform tools, and
Like the
see how it
React
does.
Native.
Yeah,
I'm
something.
always curious about Flutter. Microsoft is spending a tremendous, not Microsoft, sorry, Google is spending a tremendous amount of money and resource and effort in Flutter. And everybody I meet on the front end, when I mention Flutter, I don't know anybody who's using it and they never have anything to say, but I feel like Flutter could have been the native non JavaScript option for all platforms, but it's not happening. I don't know enough.
Yeah, I wish it was more prevalent, but yeah, I would still consider that. And anything else just to cut our time to market for both of them, because it's a lot of resource expenditure that you have to pour in if you want to support both platforms.
You have two teams.
Yeah,
You have two
yeah,
teams, and they don't run at the same necessarily level. And we had a mobile app that we built in iOS, it's a weather app, and we started building the Android app, and then that developer left, and even at the time, the features were always behind. We abandoned it, right? We abandoned it. We're only on iOS. Um, and so that happens. Two different teams, not running at the same necessarily speed. Thank God Windows isn't around now, Colin. You'd have a third team you'd have to deal with.
yeah, yeah. Although it'd be nice to have more competition. So Apple and Google definitely act like they're a duopoly, I would say, from a developer standpoint. It's not easy being a developer on their platforms, in terms of the market power and their policies and all that stuff.
So this now is super interesting. We got like 15 more minutes here, okay? And then we're up. But now yeah, we could talk for a long time, dude. You've been around 10. The app's been around for 10 years. Like I said, I'm gonna ask my wife if she heard of Down. You've had that name for at least 5 or 6 years at this point.
So it's been down since 2000, late 2013. So it's been 10, almost 10 years. Yeah.
And you were able to get the VC funding at that point.
Not too much,
Funding
by
is
the way. Yeah.
not too much, but enough to. So now everything is based on cash flow. You're able to operate on cash flow. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, we raised 1.1 million, but there was only one VC, actual VC involved.
Okay. Yeah, it's nothing.
Yeah, it really wasn't much compared to our competitors and what people have been raising lately. Um, but there were quite a few angels that helped us out get to that number, and then we struggled to raise a bridge round or a round after that. So I implemented revenue, and shortly after we sold the company. So we went through an acquisition, and that company. I know I'm speed running here, but that company.
No. Do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that company. I was there for 3.5 years, but I moved away from working on Down for about a year and a half to 2 years at least, and they kind of neglected the app. So they tried to pump performance ad money into it and build it up, but they weren't really paying enough attention to the product. Anyway, through a twist of fate and luck, they had to sell off Down and a few other assets in a fire sale. And I was able to reacquire it for a pretty good price. So now, no investors, just myself and my business partner. And we just run things, like you said, cash flow positive, and keep investing in building a better product.
Dude, I love those stories.
Yeah.
Pay me top dollar, be an idiot, and then I'm going to buy it for so many pennies on the dollar back, and I get my baby back. What I find interesting after talking to you is that I would have figured after you sold it and you took a little time off that you would have already started another thing, and you come back to this app. So it seems to me that you really love that industry in a sense, or this problem space. Let's call it that. You love this problem space so much that you were able to acquire it back, and you're ready to spend another 10 years on this app and in this space growing it.
Yeah, yeah. To be honest, it was kind of the thing when I bought it back. I was just part-time on it, and it kind of pulled me back in. So when I quit that parent company, I was like, okay, well, I'll do a few side projects, but this thing is really taken off again, and the investments I'm putting in are paying back like fivefold, tenfold. So it's really hard to deny that sort of like math and just say, okay, I'm going to spend more time on this. I do like working in the space, but at the same time, I'm trying to free myself up to start something else new and kind of get outside of my comfort zone again.
How many people? How big is the team at Down?
So we have about 25 total people, and about 14, I think, right now are full time.
I mean, that's a decent payroll. So, especially if how many of those are okay? So, how many of those are engineers?
I want to say 60-70% of that.
Yeah, that's a decent payroll. So, I'm super. Are you making your revenue on subscription. Like I remember having to pay Match $30. I don't know if it was $30 a month. I honestly don't remember what the number was.
Well, back then it was probably lower, but so we do basically subscriptions similarly. Um, I actually never like subscriptions. I don't like them much as a user, but it's kind of the thing where the current is so strong in the industry, you just can't compete if you're doing microtransactions. Subscriptions are just so much clearer as like a revenue model. So
You must have the free where you can see but you can't message, like that traditional sort of.
we're more lenient, so we allow free users to do a lot more than I would say traditional dating sites did. So you can like people, you can message them when you get matched, and that's all free. But you get power features, so you get fewer limits and speed bumps and more superpowers, I guess, to stand out and to get more matches and more attention. If you pay for, we have either monthly or 3 months, that sort of thing for a subscription.
Have you brought back in any of that I'm going to call it geo fencing sort of stuff? Because I always thought that would be a cool. I always thought it would be cool to be in a bar and open up the app and see if there's anybody on this app that's currently in the bar, right? Because now I don't have to do it through the app. I can do it through that one-on-one experience and be able to go up to that person and say, "Hey, the app said you're here and you're looking," and like it would be so much easier for me to go up to somebody knowing that as opposed to completely cold. And you talked about geo, I'm gonna again geolocation stuff early on in some of the other apps. So have you introduced any of that? Is that what's on your radar screen that's really going to keep down unique to the traditional apps?
So we don't have that particular feature. Way back in the day, we did events, so you could go to a festival and with thousands of people, and you could see who else was single there and who else was looking around. So that was our version of that within Down. I think there is an app kind of similar to what you're saying. For the straight audience, there's one called Happen, and that's more like people you cross paths with a lot. And then obviously for the gay market, Grinder, a lot of them use that in the hyper local sense. So this person is literally on my block or who is at this bar. For straight apps, or ours is actually accepting of all sorts of identities, but the majority are straight users, and a lot of the thinking with our features goes into safety and making women feel comfortable. So it's a hard thing if you're in the bar, you're at the airport lounge, um, to make the woman feel comfortable. If you're actually, she can, she's broadcasting, "Hey guys, I want to talk to you," right? And that can be difficult, right? And you can see my exact location right now, and all that stuff.
Yeah. The safety part is, yeah. Even when I was dating, I really made it a point to try to make that person feel safe, right? Like I'm not a creep. So yeah, super important. All right. T- Talk to me about what are your thoughts on large language models, where AI is going today, and where you see your ability to integrate that into your product.
Sure. So obviously, or maybe not obviously, I think we're kind of in this hype cycle and maybe coming down a little bit on LLMs. And having said that, like many techies, it kind of blew my mind and got me really excited for it. So we are already using not only LLMs but AI in general in a few areas. So on the LLM side, what we're doing is, we have tons of users who join and tons of messages that they're sending, and we have both a moral and legal obligation if that user is underage but pretending to be overage, or if somebody is looking for somebody underage, to find that out as soon as possible. And we don't want, we have a 24/7 monitoring team, but we don't want them to, and it's not really practical for them to be able to detect that all the time via the text and messages, right? So LLMs we've been able to train them and teach it enough to kind of get the nuances when somebody's implying, "Hey, I'm underage," or "I'm looking for somebody underage," and then we can very quickly detect it and flag it and take care of it. On the similar area, like we call them bad actors, but it covers everybody from underage to scammers to, you know, sex workers and stuff like that. We use AI right now to detect and give us a general score. So we do that on their photos, on their other profile info, on their activity and behavior, etc. And so we're trying to get better and better with that. And eventually, we want to get it so good that it's automated, so that it has a very low false positive rate, and then we can just put the rest of them, the small less than 1%, into a manual review bucket. So we're using AI already, and I'll pause there. But I have another exciting AI project that I can talk about too.
No. Talk about that, because I'm realizing now that the basic profiling, matching, swiping tech, that's no big deal. But you're having to spend a tremendous amount of time, money, and resources in keeping people safe. I didn't think about all these things until you actually mentioned it and how important they are. But talk about the other AI project too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, just to your point, we spend so much time and like have probably about 1.5 engineering resources just all the time focused on this area. So not to mention the round the clock coverage from the manual team to monitor things. So there's a lot of investment to keep people safe and to just give them a better experience. And even with that, just like every other dating app, including the big ones, we get complaints about fake accounts and stuff. So we are, in my estimation, one of the better ones at catching them. But it's hard. It's an arms race, and it's not easy to win. But the other AI projects that we're working on, and this is like really exciting for us because it's a little bit adjacent to dating. It's not necessarily it doesn't have to be within the same app. We're building a few things. So first is, a lot of users struggle, especially men. They don't have enough good profile photos, but they have a few photos in themselves that they can show, but maybe the background isn't great, or they weren't looking quite as well rested as they wanted. The lighting wasn't as great, whatever it is. So we're working on an AI called Dapper. But basically, the idea is, with just uploading 7 photos of yourself, it'll auto generate some new photos of you for your profile. And so,
So you don't think that's cat? What do they call it? Catfishing? You don't think that's catfishing?
yeah, so a few things. We're tuning it, hopefully, to be pretty realistic about who you are, right? But the second thing is, we're going to put a watermark on it, so other users can tell, hey, this was generated from Dapper, from the AI, but they can read about it. And then within Down itself, and other dating apps do this, we have a verification thing where it compares your profile photo to your live camera when you turn it on. So if you want to get verified, it has you go through an exercise. Right now, I think we have you blink twice to show that you're human, and then we can compare them. So there is some extra protection to make sure that it's real. But that to me is really fun because it's using this new generative AI stuff, and we get to, as far as I've seen, the other competitors, you have to upload minimum of 20, many of them like 30, 40 photos for it to learn, and ours is down to 7 right now. So hopefully we can launch that in the next month or two.
All right. Two thoughts pop in my head. One, well, the first one is, if you can find, so this is the funny one. Okay. There, when I was dating, I was also like asking the people I was dating, like, as they were on the phone, like certain things. And a lot of, at least down here in Miami, a lot of women were like, the moment I see somebody on a boat, it's all over. So now I'm thinking, like, could you do that on the fly, right? If I know this profile doesn't want to see me on a boat, then don't show them me on my boat picture. It's like, that's like scary stuff to me, because now it's almost like I'm making sure that they don't see what I know they don't want to see. Like, that's where we're getting at there.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a balance between helping users show their best self and being realistic, right? Being honest enough, right? So everybody, even in person on your first date, you don't. Very few people are so, I would say, expressive and honest about who they are, that you show all your bad habits and quirks and all that stuff, right? But on your dating profile, we want to help people just present their best selves and still be realistic, be honest about who they are. And that's where, I mentioned some other things, but yeah, it's a hard challenge.
I don't know. I'm down in Miami, dude. So sometimes I feel like it becomes an event. We're gonna take pictures today for my profile, right? Like we're gonna go all over the city and take these pictures. And my experience is, at least the women that my daughters and sisters and stuff, they love those days. They want to go out, but I hate pictures. I remember struggling to find even 6 pictures that I thought was.
A lot of men are like that. I don't have a whole lot myself, and also we're just not as trained or skilled at choosing and taking and then choosing the best ones to represent ourselves well.
Oh no, yeah, no, for sure. I needed. It was also super interesting. I'm not going to get into details, but women are also much better at looking at a picture and seeing things. There was a picture of this woman that I was looking at dating, and she took a picture with 2 guys next to her. And this, I don't remember who I was with. I think it was one of my friends. And she analyzed that picture to the point where I was like, yeah, I'm not going to reach out to this person. It was like
Wow.
mind blowing, the things that they were looking at, the body position towards one guy to the other. And she was like, they dated. I'm like, what are you talking about? No, no, no. Look at her. She's opened her body like to this guy, like I would never stand next to a guy like that if I wasn't dating him. And I was like, oh. And so now I'm learning how to like see these things in the pictures. And it was kind of helpful actually at the end. So just wild stuff, dude. Wild, wild, wild stuff. Colin, we are out of time. And I say this to every guest because it's true, man. We could just keep talking about this stuff, especially so give me this. I want to take 2 more minutes. Um, you said that you were moving. You started to be able to transition some of that software to Go. In the last 2 minutes, give me an idea on the engineering side. What are you looking at over the next couple of years in terms of making the platform maybe stronger? I know you're kind of out of it, but I'm sure you sort of talk about it a little bit. So I'm kind of curious, like what's your like next year or two sort of game plan from a tech perspective, infrastructure, and trying to stay relevant there. I wish we could even just talk about all the marketing stuff, but just give me a little last piece of the engineering side of what's happening.
Yeah, so we've actually transitioned back from Go and those microservices to Rails, but we've brought in a lot more, frankly, just experienced engineers and DevOps, because for us, we've in the past year and a half, we've just grown by leaps and bounds in terms of our users and all that. So we're getting so many new users coming in that we had to scale things pretty high. And I think for us, we've done a lot of stuff, for instance, on checking out, moving things between AWS and GCP, um, Google's cloud provider. And then for the biggest challenge ahead for that stuff, it really is about how do we control those costs and make it more scalable for the level of new users and active users that we have to support. Um, and then, frankly, the other stuff from the tech side is, as we talked about, just integrating more and more AI and automation for stuff that we can do for safety, that we can do to improve profiles. And our matching algorithm, we've tried a little bit with machine learning, but we have a long way to go, I think, in terms of integrating that and seeing improvements there. So I look forward to definitely the scaling side's exciting because of everything that comes with it. It really levels up all the other opportunities for us. But in terms of like solving this stuff with machine learning and AI, it's really wide open right now. We have so much that we can do to help users get matched, create a better profile, and find the right person.
Yeah, there are an endless number of really interesting problems in tech that you can focus. Have you thought at all at any point now? How long would you say the company has been around at this point? Would you consider from the beginning, or would you consider from the time you bought it back?
I guess I consider it from the beginning, but so 11 years, or going on 11 years, I should say. Um, the next evolution is really how can we, right now, we grade ourselves internally, and we want to be hands down the best casual and honest dating app that there is. And there's competition out there for that. We feel that by instead of chasing the other competitors, we can take inspiration, but we can just be true to ourselves and true to that, like, really honest, but frankly, just like humorous voice that is our brand. So that's our future, I think, and the features we develop are going to be in line with that.
All right, last question. Last question. My first business failed. We raised 5 million in angel, and I felt like we bled to death after that. We just didn't have enough money to execute at the level we needed to. We didn't have enough money to get the resources, didn't have enough money for the marketing. And I would say over 5 years, we bled to death, right? It was a slow death, but it was a death. You're not bleeding to death at any level, but you're also maybe not moving as fast as you otherwise could to get all of this feature functionality and stay at least technically ahead of competitors. So have you ever thought again about maybe raising to accelerate that growth, to jump that scale where you said you were like, I don't remember, you were 20, let's say, on this list, to get into the top 10? Or you just like the slow pace? I'm going to call it slow pace. Maybe I'm wrong, but the slow pace you're on, it's okay.
The way we think about it is we're building a company that we want to be sustainable and to have a responsible growth path. And even with that, we're growing 50% to 80% every year. We're pretty happy with that, and without, we have stressful days, but without burning ourselves out too much. So we've thought about raising. We've had some interest, and definitely with our sort of like cash flow that we're doing, there are other options. It's not just like equity raising. There are loans and stuff like that. But right now, I think we're really happy with how we're set up, and just being true to ourselves and not having to worry about, okay, we got to keep these investors happy and they want to hit this growth thing. Frankly, like, our quarterly goals for our team, they're not even mostly focused on profit. They're mostly focused on how do we improve the user's experience, and things are along those lines. So it's harder to do that once you take money from somebody else, right?
Yeah, I love the attitude here, right? So again, now I got to ask you two more questions. One, you have not have you seen any sort of revenue drop this year with the way the economy has been, especially in the tech sector, right? And everybody's sort of holding cash back a little bit. They're throwing interest rates out of control to try to help with the inflation, which has stopped a lot. I think they finally said spending has slowed down. Is are the dating apps one of these industries like death and taxes where it just doesn't slow down no matter what the economy is doing?
We're still growing, and I think the dating industry as a whole is growing. I know some of the public companies like Match Group, they reported some slowdown, but I think their sales were still up. Overall, though, the greater economic effects have not hurt us. And the thing to keep in mind is the younger generation, like Gen Z, the default for them is to be on a dating app now. So our market is just growing. Like, we've changed to be a much younger app. Now our sweet spot is like 18 to 25, 29 if I want to stretch it. And there are, people like my age on there still, but that is where the vast majority of our users are, like, the biggest plurality. So we're doing well in terms of that. And if we see a slowdown, then we'll adjust, because again, we're running this both for the mission, but also to be a sustainable company for our employees as well.
Yeah, I don't. My last question, and your employees are going to listen to this, but I still want you to be honest here. Somebody walks in with $100 million tomorrow, right? You sell this company again. I get a sense that you're in it right now for the real long term. Like, This is almost a lifestyle business for you at this point.
I mean, anybody would be lying if they said they're not going to consider an offer like that, right? What I've talked with my business partner about is just that it does matter to us who we sell it to. And so, like, there were background conversations, or I would say leads for an exit or something. But we ruled one or two out just from based on like their reputation or like where we heard their funding is from, that sort of thing. So it depends who we sell it to and it depends how they're going to treat it. And then there are things I would do differently if I do ever sell it again to make sure that they don't neglect it, or that they really transition it well to their company.
They have the right intentions because you've done this already and you don't want to see it. I love that. I love that answer. That's an honest answer.
I try. Honest dating app, honest answers.
All right, dude. We are way out of time here, but I had to ask all that stuff. So first of all, thank you for all this time. I loved this conversation we had and what you're building, and it's really, really cool.
Thank you so much. I'm glad we could dive deep on this stuff and dig up some old good memories.
So Colin, if anybody wants to reach out to you after listening to this show, and we'll put it in the show notes too, but like, what's the best way for somebody to sort of ping you if they just had a question or wanted to talk?
Yeah. Well, I think first I would point them to downapp.com. You can check out our app. And frankly, if you contact us there, I'll get it eventually anyway. But I also have a personal site, colinhodge.com, and you can contact me there.
Brilliant. All right. This is Colin Hodge and Bill Kennedy signing off to the Ardan Labs podcast, and I hope to see everybody again real soon.